Okay, hello. Welcome to our let me get the sound check here. There we go. Okay, good. Well, at least I know we have sound and camera and all that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Critical Conversations for the 20th of October in the year of our Lord, 2023. I always love annoying Melissa with that. As you can see, I am flying solo tonight. Sorry about that. We were all set to come on and something came up. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It's been a little bit of a week, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But yes, live from Denver, it is Friday night, and I see the usual critics and all of that here in the chat, which is awesome. Really glad to be joined by you guys this evening. It's I know. Oh wow, thank you, Laura, for that. You're awesome. That is so awesome. Thank you for the support with the memberships. I have we've had quite a week here this week, last couple of weeks really, I think. And I didn't really nail down what was going on until today. And I'm not going to go on too long of a personal diatribe here, but I did think, I'm wondering if I'm alone in this, and I don't think I am. So I thought I might share some thoughts about this. But before I get into any of that, before we get into any of that serious stuff, I wanted to share some Benson Cam with you guys because he is just kind of adorable this week. Let's take a look at what we've got here. There he is. Now, if you can, as soon as this new member alert comes off the screen here, you'll see he's an obedience school dropout. Mel got that bandana for him this week, and he has just been the cutest little thing ever. We were trying to get him to move around a little bit. I am definitely going to move that alert box from out of the center of the screen like that. But yeah, there he is. There's me playing with him a little bit, and there you can see him. We are just, yeah, he is just the cutest little guy. So yes, anyway. So that's our Snuggles Not Struggles cam for this week, with our little guy there just playing around in the living room. And there really we really could use some Snuggles Not Struggles these days, couldn't we? Let me flip back over here. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I've got this whole monitor right here, right off camera. So I just kind of, when I'm looking over here, that's what I'm looking at, is a monitor on the table here that runs the whole show. And slowly but surely, I got some really great advice. A reminder, I don't know anybody, how do I put this? I think I will give just about anybody except myself a break. And I really create an awful lot of pressure on myself. And I know that's, there's all the cult influence that we talk about with how it establishes action patterns and habits and routines in people. And it very surely does. Very surely does. And it can take years to get over it. And I just often, I sometimes wonder, is it just me now? Or is it still the Scientology influence? Or is it still just the culture we live in? Or the fact that I'm a content creator? Or what is it? Because some people can be so chill about this stuff. And they're just kind of, ba-da, no big deal, right? And I'm not really like that. Scratchy scratch here. Sorry about that. I just get really a little, I don't want to use the word frantic. I don't feel frantic, but I put a lot of pressure on myself. And sometimes I express some things, on other social media platforms, and people see this and go, oh, Chris, you're being a little bit hard on yourself. You need to calm down. It's okay, right? And I really appreciate when I hear that, because it's true, of course. And, kind of on the opposite side of, what I've tattooed on my body to keep myself, to remind myself constantly, it's chaos, be kind. That's a really a motto to live by. And it's not hard for me to be kind, but it's nice to get the reminder at times when you don't necessarily want to be kind, right? But on the other arm, I'm still waiting to get tattooed why so serious? Because that's the other side of my personality that needs reminding often, to just like chill. Just, it's okay. It's going to be okay, It's just old habits. I don't know what to say about that. Now, I see, yeah, everybody loves Benson here. This is awesome. So, we had a little bit of we had two things happen this week that sort of were like, or two things going on in my head that were creating a lot of anarchy and disorder in the week, starting on Monday, and it was that our car blew up. And so, I mean, it didn't literally explode, but it stopped operating. At least it didn't really completely stop, but there were issues and problems with it that required immediate attention. There's the exact problem. And not sure how to answer that, Laura. Let me think about that for a minute. And so my entire week was consumed with getting our car diagnosed first, because there was a problem. There were, lights were coming on and whatnot. And then going and getting that paid for, and then getting the bad news, and then having to figure out how to deal with that. And on top of all that, I just could not keep up with the usual stuff that I do during the week, because it's pretty time-consuming stuff that I do, especially on Mondays, which kind of sets the tone for the whole week. If I have a, rockin' Monday, then things are going to be pretty good. And if Monday is a complete, shit show, then things are going to be a bit rough this week. And that's basically what happened behind the scenes here, right? And so we had to get that car dealt with. We did. We ended up getting, at first, what looked like was going to be sort of bad news in terms of the trade-in and all that. Actually, we flipped the script on that. I will put an unpaid for plug-in here for AutoNation. Go AutoNation. So we ended up basically upgrading to a new, not a new, but a more new, a more recent version of the car we've had before, which was a Prius. So we went from one Prius from a 2008 to a 2012. Anyway, I'm probably way oversharing here, but I wanted to let you guys know why I've been kind of stressed this week, because that also set our, we were making progress on, and I know you guys can relate, right? You just have these things happen in life and you just shake your fist at the sky, because what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? 2 years of work to work on the credit lines, right? And pay down some things. Right? Boom, gone. All of, we have to go back on and make the car payment and do all the stuff and whatever. I'm not even asking for sympathy. It's just kind of one of those shake the fist at the sky kind of things. Like, there's nobody to blame. There's nothing evil happened here. It's just life. And there was a post on Facebook I saw today that some graphic that kind of sort of was like, yeah, this is kind of the change I needed to experience this week, which was there's running through life constantly being upset or disappointed or whatever over your expectations of what should be, and then there's the sort of calmness or the of acceptance, this sort of like, okay, you can chill now because you can just kind of accept how life really is versus how you'd like it to be. It's one of those kind of very pragmatic kind of pieces of advice that or things that hits you and you just go, yeah, that's what I needed to do. And especially with this other thing I'm gonna mention to you guys that I think might relate more to some of the world right now. 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I reported on the whole Israeli-Palestine conflict, and I'm sure everybody's, not necessarily coming to my channel to hear about that, but I want to talk about it because it had a pretty profound effect on me personally over the last 2 weeks, and I have nothing to do with it. I'm not Jewish. I'm not Palestinian. I'm not Middle Eastern in any way. I'm not connected with the conflict. I've never been to the area. I don't really even have a lot of friends of one persuasion or the other. This isn't a personal thing for me. It shouldn't be. And yet it has become a very, a source of a great deal of upset, great deal of like, kind of emotional pain and concern. And and I think other people, I hope other people can relate to this, right? Because I think this is an empathic response. I think this is a typical, or should be a typical response to, sort of how I see, because I'm so disconnected from, because I'm not on either side of this, and I don't want to be, and I am looking at it as a long-term, decades-long, almost century-long series of conflicts that just won't stop between these two groups and the various vested interests that have taken sides in this, or have decided to support one side or the other. Oh, Henny, no problem at all. You don't have to apologize for being late. So, all I see in all of this is a lot of extreme rhetoric, a lot more extreme behavior that we can look at through a lot of different lenses, and every one of them is valid: cultural, geographical, religious, right? Racial in a way. I mean, all of these lenses can be looked at as causative elements or issues deeply connected with this entire conflict. But at the end of the day, right, is all of this conflict and is all of this, turmoil and upset and everything worth, so many innocent lives over all these decades? And I think that's kind of what came home to me when I first was putting this all together for myself. And I will be the first to admit that it's, that it's pretty sad that it's taken me decades of my own life to understand what this conflict is all about. But now that, and a lot of other people apparently are in the same boat, because there's videos all over YouTube now about the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And it's, a lot of people want to understand what the hell is going on. And then there's people who just want to take sides. And then there's people who just want to hurt other people. And that's kind of where I was going to go tonight with this, was to kind of talk about some of that in terms that I can understand and use to explain some aspects of it, at least. So without redoing my entire, news podcast here, I'm not going to go back over the entire history of this whole thing. But what I'm more concerned about, much, much, much more concerned about in terms of what is closer to home and what is more personal to me, is what's happening right here in the United States, and as a result of this conflict and it becoming suddenly a news item again. It's not like this is a new thing. You understand? This conflict's been going on for decades. Longer than I've been alive, longer than you've been alive. I can confidently say that, unless you're a, what's the over 100 years old, right? Centenarian or something. This has been going on for a long time, and the entire time it's been going on, innocent people have been getting killed over it, on both ends. Right? People have nothing to do with this. People who were non-combatants in this, people who were just living in their houses, just trying to live their lives, that kind of thing. But there are clearly elements in both of these, sides who are very, very driven to commit violence against the other side. And it's not like you can't understand what's going on or why. It's not like you can't look at one side and listen to them, or go across the fence and listen to the other side and understand them and come away thinking, yeah, you're really justified in doing this. They've really got this worked out as to why it is that both sides need to be completely annihilated off the map, and that's the only possible solution, because that's how they're acting. I mean, maybe the words that they are saying now are somewhat different than that, but that's not been what their actions have demonstrated. These have been efforts at complete, we've used terms like genocide and ethnic cleansing in the past to describe other conflicts of a similar nature. And this is, this very much goes in that direction, if we don't want to use those words or description for it, at least as I'm looking at it. And sorry if there's a little buffering going on with that. I am working on trying to maybe figure out a way to upgrade the internet speed or bandwidth that we have here. But, you know, again, issues. I've got the max one that Verizon can give me. I'm just wondering if I need to upgrade back up to a higher bandwidth or not. I'm not sure if it's a YouTube problem. I don't think it's a me problem. I think it's a YouTube problem. But you guys can let me know as we carry on here. I see these comments about buffering every week, and it disturbs me because I don't want that. I want you guys to have a smooth experience with the show. Anyway, what was I talking about? So in terms of the show today, conflict, war, and cult dogma, right? Okay, so let me monologue a little bit here about this. All I really prepped for in terms of talking about this today is I wanted to tell you guys my own kind of personal problems and issues with it, because I've been like up and down all week on this thing, and I didn't really spot or understand where it was coming from. I was feeling, and I had the whole car situation, and that was enough. But then realizing it actually preceded that car situation, that there was all this emotional turmoil, and it was like, oh, right. It's all the senseless violence. Dogma, talking about dogma here for a second, because I said in the title here, we're going to talk about cultic dogma. Well, dogma as a word means the doctrine of belief in a religion or a political system. The literal meaning of dogma in ancient Greek was something that seems true. These days, in English, dogma is more absolute. If you believe in a certain religion or philosophy, you believe in its dogma or core assumptions. Okay? So when I'm talking about dogma, that's what I'm talking about, right? Ups and Downs, wasn't that a book? Yes, X-Scion. There is a course in Scientology, actually, called the Ups and Downs in Life course. And I still find myself from time to time completely accidentally dredging up phrases from the Scientology time. Sometimes I will use woof and warp. I hate that, right? Because Hubbard used it all the time. It kind of is a tainted phrase for me because Hubbard used it all the time, even though I think it's a pretty common expression from the old days. Anyway, thank you, Henny, for that comment about this. Yeah, buffering issues, unfortunately. Yeah, it kind of seems to be spread around. Some people have it, some people don't. Anyway, let's get back to this. So dogma. So cults, you can't really have a group or a subject or a topic to discuss or build knowledge around if you don't have a dogma. You got to have a dogma. There's not necessarily something inherently wrong with having core beliefs or core sets of ideas or values that represent the things that the philosophical principles or the actions and reasons for those actions or the rationale for what your group is doing, especially in a religious or ideological political context, right? We're going to have these things. The word dogma, in other words, what I'm trying to clarify here is the word dogma is not a dirty word. I use it an awful lot over the years just because of the movie Dogma. It was just, about that Kevin Smith made all those years ago about the Catholic Church and all of its dogma, right? And it sort of skewered a lot of that. And I thought it did so in a pretty intelligent and clever way. So that word dogma has always kind of stuck with me along those lines of, the core values or beliefs or structures of belief of a religious system or a political system. You go, okay, yeah, sure, that makes sense. Nothing particularly wrong with that until the abuse starts coming into the picture, right? Until things start going bad. And the thing about belief is belief exists on a spectrum. You can have very little belief in a thing, and you can go down a scale or a system or a sort of metric of more belief and more belief and more commitment to the belief, and until the belief becomes a totalist belief. And this is reflected in totalist groups like the Chinese Communist Party. That's a pretty totalist group. North Korean government, pretty totalist group. You're in or you're dead. There's no two ways about it. That's kind of how life is in those parts of the world. And they don't really care about or place individual rights above group rights and group activity and group dogma, right? Free will and all of that enters into this picture, the more committed you become to a belief. And this, by the way, is from my perspective, any belief. I think you can radicalize or, become too committed, overly committed, unhealthily committed. There's a word, to any belief. So there isn't any system or idea or core value that can't be taken too far. That's me saying that, right? Maybe there are, maybe somebody could provide me with an exception to that, but I'm pretty sure any idea you give me, I'll be able to go, yeah, well, what if we, once you start killing for this idea, or once you're willing to, or once it gets that extreme. And this is one of the core fallibilities, one of the core issues with the human psyche and the way we process information. And we have evolved to deal with ideas that are just kind of non-physical, that are completely subjective. Let's put it that way, right? That they only exist in the mind. These ideas are not representative of physical things like, this is a mouse or this is a pack of cards, right? When we talk about God, or we talk about Buddha, or we talk about, Buddha was a person, but he's not anymore. So now he's just this kind of symbol, this concept, this belief. It has no physical representation, or it's not a thing or an object we're talking about. And the farther away from, physical stuff we get, the more kind of crazy we get, the more like kind of weird we get about these ideas. Because, when you can see a thing, when you can hear a thing, when you can touch and feel a thing, it's so much easier to gain agreement on that thing. I can show you a keyboard and you go, yep, that's a keyboard. There's keys and there's little letters on it. And sure enough, I can show you it types. We're not going to have big, huge raging conflicts about the nature of this. It's clearly what it is, and we can easily agree on that. But when you start talking about the nature of a supernatural being, or, angels and demons, or elves and leprechauns, or, the wind spirits or the wind gods versus the sun gods, at first, even the things that we couldn't quite get our hands on or touch or feel or control, but we could still see it. At least it had a physical representation to start with. But the further and further away we go from that, the more and more subjective we become about these ideas, the more willing we are to engage in conflict over these ideas. Because, you don't understand. You don't get it, because for whatever reason, the words you're using or the actions you're taking represent to me that you don't agree with what I'm thinking in my head. And so therefore you're in error, you're wrong. And to the degree that I am really committed to this idea, I might start becoming very, very, very emotional about this, and even violently so. Henny says here, is group dogma more likely to convince people of ideas? I think that group dogma or dogma is there to be convincing, and is there to be interesting, and is there to be defining. If you can use your core dogma or your core principles to represent, who and what you are, or what you think, or what you believe. And you hope that by communicating or proselytizing to others, that you will, entice them or interest them in this set of values and ideas. And then they can become a part of your tribe or group, or, the understanding that you have that brings you together. I think that's kind of how it works. And yeah, catechism is definitely part of the dogma. Absolutely it is. Hell, in Scientology, we had a catechism. I don't know if you guys know that or not. It's part of you have to actually read it and practice using it You role play, you drill, right? In Scientology, they don't really call it role playing. They call it you do a drill or a practical exercise. And you practice answering questions from the Catechism of Scientology as written by the Church of Scientology International. It was not written by L. Ron Hubbard. That much is for sure, but it was required that you read it, understand it, and be able to use it. And that was all part of the PTSSP course, which I did like 3 times. So, yeah, the Catechism was in the latest version of it. So that was, oh, anyway, you reminded me of my dark times. So, okay. So anyway, where I wanted to go with the whole dogma thing, right, is that there isn't, again, anything inherently wrong with having a dogma or a belief set. But I guess all I really wanted to talk about this today is that the more the more extreme behavior you see being manifested by individuals or groups of people, the more sure you can be, almost just blanketly, just almost automatically, especially in groups, the more sure you can be, right, that you are dealing with dogma that has gone out of control, right, that has just gone nuts. Now, that's not going to explain all violence by any stretch of the imagination or all extremism, but it explains an awful lot of it. And that's why it can be, if you could somehow go in, you like the way that this is like the thing is because if you can go in there and de-radicalize, bring the temperature down, calm the rhetoric, bring everybody's emotions out of the amygdala and the lizard brain sections and bring it back up to the frontal lobes, so that we can actually talk and deal more in this realm of ideas, which is what the frontal lobes and the executive functions are kind of all about, then you're not appealing to the lizard brain side, right? It's kind of like, I don't want to be Simple Simon about this, but it's kind of like the deeper we go into a dogmatic belief set, the deeper into the brain this stuff is sort of entering into us and taking over or consuming our entire identity. And then your actions are dictated by the demands of the identity, and you're not thinking anymore. You don't have to think anymore because the identity you've become that one monolithic, very Simple Simon kind of personality. That's what a cult personality kind of is. That's another way of describing it. Is it's a personality that goes like way deep down. I don't even want to, talk about brain parts. It's just, you know what I mean when I say deep down. It's like, we're not talking in the rational parts, right? And that's one reason I think why people who are incredibly dogmatic in their approach to life, right, who believe in strong, solid frameworks for things, that things are very binary in the way they operate, right? It's on-off switches all over their existence, all over their life. That's how they view the world. That kind of thinking is very easy to get from there to this kind of extremism. It's harder to go to this extreme place when you are operating in a place where ideas are a dime a dozen, where beliefs are take it or leave it, where you're able to sort of more, look at them as a collection of ideas. You can just go, oh yeah, there's one. Okay. Oh, here's another one. Yeah. That's interesting. Oh, here's another one. Oh, okay. Right. Oh, Buddhism. Yeah. Taoism. Oh yeah. Shinto. Oh yeah. Really? Oh, Christianity. Okay. Wow, there's a few of those. Okay, yeah, quite a few Christianities. Oh, here's another Buddhism. Okay. Oh, Hindu. Yeah. Oh, Hindu. Okay. Right? Like there's all these ideas and all these different manifestations of them. And if a person's mind or their personality or who they are is the person who can take it or leave it with these ideas, this is a person who is going to be very, very a lot chiller in their existence, and they're going to have a lot less conflict in their life. And I think that matters. I think that's worth saying out loud. because I think it's a value, that it's a goal, it's a thing we could put out as a critical thinking goal, if nothing else, if you want to call it a skepticism or a critical thinking approach to things, where you're just going to kind of approach ideas and beliefs and concepts that people are going to try to talk to you into. And you just go, okay, I really, I want to know more about this. This is really interesting to me. But the emotional attachment, hold off on that part. That's the part that'll get you, Oh, okay. Yes, I'm seeing these comments here. I'm not going to talk about buffering anymore. Anyway, actually, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight. I didn't have like a really long prepared speech. I just kind of wanted to go over that basic idea that I kind of needed to be forcefully reminded of myself, because, I can, right, get too deep into these things myself, right? It's not like I'm some living perfect personification of critical thinking. I'm struggling just like everybody else. And when I hear about what I refer to or think of as senseless violence, I know there's an awful lot of people out there who do not think that there is no sense to this, that they are fully and very, very justified, absolutely justified in the violence that is being committed, or that needs to be committed, or that they want to have committed. And I see an awful lot of that on social media right now. Like I don't know what you guys are seeing, but that's what I'm seeing, and it's disturbing. And I see this being represented on major news media, and I see our own president, having to talk about and respond to this, and trying to himself. I thought it was a pretty good approach, saying, hey, we kind of lost our damn minds after 9/11. Let's please learn from our mistakes, and I've seen outrage over that viewpoint or opinion being expressed by our president, but I happen to agree with it. I think we did lose our damn minds after 9/11 as a collective, as a nation. And, you want war, you want blood, you want, vengeance. It's a very easy thing to understand. It's the easiest thing to understand. But I think that there are other approaches and other ways we can deal with this. Yeah, they're putting ads up in the live streams now, guys. I thank you for mentioning that in the comments there. I meant to bring that up. This has been a change. YouTube is going a little bit. Let me talk about this for a second, now that I've kind of finished what I had to say on there. And if you want to call in, now would be a great time, by the way. And the call-in line is 984-214-4154. Happy to hear from you. And I'm also happy at this point to take any questions or anything, too, if you guys want to throw them at me. Either have a discussion about it or put them in the comments. As far as YouTube goes, there have been changes. I think there's a new CEO or something. There's been a new sheriff in town for a while at the helm of YouTube, and changes have been being made that have been much more... oh gosh, how do I put this? The decisions have been driven very much by ad revenue. And so, and not necessarily in a way that I think is good for my channel, because I have run my channel from day one without putting ads in the middle of my videos. I always put them on the beginning or the end. I had that choice. You could decide to put ads in the middle of your videos if you want, and you could even place where they would go. I've never done that. I've wanted the experience from beginning to end to be a continuous one and uninterrupted, right, by ads. It would have been very easy and convenient and more, remunerative for me to be putting in what were called mid-roll ads, but I didn't. I resisted it. Well, YouTube has now taken that choice away from me. All creators have had that choice taken away from them, and they had the gall to email us about this and tell us that this was a service that they were doing for us, that that the average YouTuber and blah 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 is going to benefit from this, and therefore we are providing this service to you of now putting mid-roll ads into all of your videos. And I was a little upset about that because of all the reasons I just said for your experience of my channel. Anyway, it's not my choice. to have those ads in there. I've had one on my screen here, watching the live stream here, pop up as well. I had to skip it. And YouTube's also coming down hard on. Oh, I don't know where you can order my TIE Fighter shirt online. Not sure about that one. I think most of these we got at Walmart actually. Most of my Star Wars shirts and Batman shirts and stuff. Okay. Anyway, yeah, not a feature. These things are definitely not wanted. I did not want to do this, but I have to, and so now I do. And what I've set it for is now they've given you a choice of, okay, you can have a few, a minimum of ads, a normal amount of ads, or, you can really go to town on it, right? And I've watched videos where somebody selected really go to town on it, and it's like every 5 minutes. It was like, forget that. Forget average. I put it on the what's called the conservative setting, so that it should be a minimal interruption to our live streams and my usual videos as well. This applies equally on both. So if you think you're seeing more ads on YouTube right now, you are right. And if you think that these ads are a bit excessive, you are right. But for whatever reason, I actually looked it up today, and Google, as a company which owns YouTube, Google is worth $1.73 billion. Did I get that right? 1.7? No, it's got to be more than that. Was it 100? Let me see. Google company value. I love having my computer right here now. How much is Google company worth? Oh, there it is. Yeah, 1.74 trillion. Sorry, not billion, trillion. This makes Alphabet, Google, the world's fourth most valuable company by market cap, according to our data. So this company is acting as though it is desperate for cash, like it's some failing startup. That's how YouTube is being run right now. As a creator, I am incensed by this for you. To me, it should be the more the merrier. My attitude probably should be bring it on, more ads, yeah, revenue, right? But that's not ever how I've thought about my channel or presenting my channel to you guys. So anyway, yeah, a trillion is 1,000 billion. So yeah, you take 1,000, you get a million. You get 1,000 of those, you get a billion. Right? 1,000 million is a billion, and 1,000 billion is a trillion. And that is a number that no human being can really, really conceive of. I think past a million, you actually start, your brain just becomes foggy. But the words represent numbers, and the numbers represent something for us better than nothing. But yeah, it's pretty bad. So anyway, all I can say here is, I'm really, I almost want to apologize, but it's not my fault. It just is what it is on the ad stuff. So sorry about that, guys. All right. So we have 20 minutes in the show's usual time. What would you guys like to talk about? I kind of feel I've probably, overstated my, whatever about that whole conflict thing. So I've kind of wanted to just get that off my chest, because for me, that means I can move on, right? And this week is going to be definitely this next week, definitely going to be moving on. I'm sort of there. I want to thank more of you. I saw Stuart in the, I've been a little wary on naming names, but I've seen people, in the chat who have been part of creating my ideal studio here, and I really want to thank you guys, like, a lot. I've still got stuff on my ideal studio wish list, of course, because there's just trying to make things better. But it's I wish I was faster and more like I don't know. I don't want agile. I don't know. Anyway, it's just. It's a process, building a studio and then rebuilding and hanging lights and putting stuff around and doing all the things. It's been a lot of fun, but I just crush myself over all my mistakes. I hate that. Anyway, let's see what we got going on in the comments here right now. Okay, cool. Hey guys. Huh. That's an interesting question. Xion asks, did you ever not give the name of a person as an SP because you didn't want to get them in trouble or have to possibly disconnect from them? Like someone close to you, make up something? Thank you, Laura. Um, the only thing that comes to mind for me right now, Xion, is my mom, but I didn't really. I mean, my mom was. That's the only thing that comes to mind. I think you guys know the story with my mom, right? Like she and I maintained communication through all the years that I was in Scientology. Fairly decent communication for sometimes, except for those years I was on the RPF. I was incommunicado pretty much across the boards. But even there we had some letters. But the church was not happy with my mom. The church wanted my mom not really on my plate, right? On my lines, as they would say. And there were overtures a couple times by PAC security, the literally the uniformed security guys. They act not only as external security, I don't know if you know this, but they also act as internal monitors. Of course they do. It's a cult, right? So they are always keeping an eye on, and they would actually even have there'd be a weekly meeting that they would have about, troublesome staff and staff that they were keeping their eyes on. And I guess my name was on that list somehow. I forgot the name of that meeting. It was a security-based meeting. It happened every week. They would go over, these various people on the base. And I guess my mom being, not really involved in Scientology and not doing anything for years, and maybe having some communications with the church that weren't so wonderful, not antagonistic. And my mom never, was anything but, pretty my mom. But you know how the Church of Scientology is, right? And if you're not coming in and doing your services and they start putting their attention on you and really start putting the screws on, it can come to you can come to a loggerhead situation, have a real problem. And that was kind of where my mom was at off and on over the years. And this was all kind of off my plate. I was just kind of in the Sea Org doing my thing. But this would come along every now and again. And some security guard would come talking to me about my mom. What about your mom? Your mom giving you any shit, right? Any trouble from your mom, right? And it was always kind of coming up. And I was like, look, my mom's fine. There's nothing wrong with my mom. And, and I even kind of wondered a little bit myself sometimes because I was so deep in the mindset. But no, never let them name her as an SP, I guess. It's not really an answer to your question, I think, but it's the only thing that comes to mind when I was thinking about thinking about that. Oh, good. I'm glad you like the John Atack stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, exactly. I might have adjusted my glasses a couple times. Yes, I might have done that. Okay, there was something else that I wanted to. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys about this last week, and I totally missed it. A couple weeks ago on my news show, I reported that the country of Japan, the nation of Japan, the government, might well vote to dissolve the corporation of the Moonies, the Unification Church, in Japan. Well, apparently they're doing it. Apparently they went forward with that, or they're going forward with that. And this is very, very, very good news. Because Japan, this is not Scientology stuff, obviously, but it's cult stuff, and I'm excited. I need to take my good news where I can get it, and this is really good news. The cult of the Moonies have been around for decades and decades, right? And fortunately now they're probably on the decline, but there is a base of operations there, and a pile of money and vested interests that it represent billions of dollars of profit and income, right? So the Moonies, the Unification Church, is not a small-time operation. Even now, Moon has been dead now for quite a few years. His widow and his kids are kind of running the operation, and they've split it up. And this kind of thing is how I kind of understand it to operate. There's lots of details, but that's, in a general sense, I think that's what's happening. Well, Japan has been a major base of operations for the Moonies, for the Unification Church, for many, 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 many years. And they have had a deep level of influence with the Japanese government. They have infiltrated and had been engaged in influence peddling with Japanese politicians for decades now, through paid speaking engagements, you know, all the usual stuff. Scientology plays at doing this, but the Unification Church really took this to a pro level. I mean, remember, Moon's a guy who has met with more than one U.S. president, and that's a big deal. It's not nothing to, you know, have your picture taken shaking hands with the president. And for somebody like, you know, Moon to have had so much clout that he could do that over and over and over again through various administrations indicates just how much influence and power he had. So that power is still consolidated there to one degree or another. And in Japan, there was an incident a few years ago where a young man killed, flat out shot and killed the former prime minister of Japan, who had kind, you know, influence, had been influenced and had been done speaking and had kind words for various parts of the Unification Church. And so he targeted this man and killed him. And this brought to light this entire thing. It was the catalyst for the Japanese government and other social groups and media groups there to finally look into, for real, right, the influence that the Moonies had, and to decide to take action against it. And there was a lot of debate as to whether that action would even happen. You know, there was a lot of rumblings. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Well, they're going to. And so this is, I'm just saying, this is really good news. It's not going to get rid of the Moonies. It's not going to get rid of the Moonies in Japan. They'll just reincorporate. They'll come up with some other name. They'll rebrand. They'll do this. They'll do that. That's fine. But what this does is it tells everyone, and especially people in the government of Japan, don't get cozy with the Moonies, right? And that's worth its weight in gold, right? Because the real power, I mean, when you start talking about power over people, power over their pocketbooks, power over their children, that's a lot of power. But it's almost pales in comparison to the kind of power and influence and money that is involved when you start dealing with governments. And Moon knew this, and Moon was all over this. Now, there's lots of other history here, which, yes, Steve Haston could definitely go into detail on if I could ever get him on to talk about this stuff, because I would love to talk to Steve about this. He's an incredibly busy guy, right? I'm not trying to hit on Steve. He's just super, super busy. Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, you're in Japan. Excellent. Yeah, the second gens are standing up against them, and finally the government is listening. Exactly. This is a big deal. Yeah, they have a whole offshoot church now. I don't even know that I should call it offshoot. I mean, it kind of is. That worships the gun. That the M16 or the AR-15 is like their sacred relic or something, and everybody's got one. They got gold-plated guns and shit. I mean, it's really quite off the rails, right? This whole family and how awful it is. Oh yeah, and then there's the connections with the sushi market. That's right. I did not watch The Untold Story of Sushi in America, but I have known for many, many years, mostly due to Steve, actually, because I met up with him very early on after getting out of Scientology, and learned a lot about the Moonies then, talking to him. And yeah, they have every single time you're buying sushi in America. I wish this was hyperbole. As I understand it, this is actually a true statement. That every single time you're buying sushi in the United States, and many other places in the world too, but certainly in the US, you are putting money in the coffers of the Unification Church, and not a little bit. So they own that trade, apparently. And there's other ways and means they have of bringing in money that involves labor and I'll say sex trafficking, because what else am I supposed to call these enforced group marriages? That is the craziest thing ever. These are people who barely know each other, first met 5 minutes ago. Now they're going to get married and have Moon's holy children. I mean, this is the most outrageous set of dogmatic nonsense, right, that you could ever have anything to do with. But there are millions of people who fell for this. So yeah, I don't like sushi either. I just don't. I don't like raw fish. Sorry. I know people are going to start throwing things at me, but ugh. Well, I'm not sure. Thomas asks here, do you know what started the elimination of this cult of the Moonies? I mean, I think what I just explained as far as that assassination thing goes, that was a pretty big catalyst. That was something you couldn't ignore. That was on the level of why Shinrikyo were disbanded in Japan, right? Is because, the sarin gas attack. I mean, it's just, you can't, how do you ignore something like that? You can't. It causes a national uproar. And as I understand it, there was some kind of national uproar over the whole Mooney connection with the government. So that's what I understand about that. And, and I look at that, and I got to tell you, when it comes to Scientology, it's stuff like that that really gives me hope. Way more than anything the American government is doing, and way more, if I'm being honest, than, civil lawsuits are going to do. I mean, this is the kind of government intervention that we need. It's, and I'm really happy that the Japanese government decided, for whatever reason, maybe it was to cover their ass, maybe it was, okay, we're, gonna play at this. I don't really care what the intent is. The fact they did it is going to discourage people and stop people from becoming Moonies, and that's what's important. So it's anyway, quite awesome. Oh, I don't know about any of that with Hassan. I can't speak to that. You know how I feel about social canceling and nonsense like that. So I'm not gonna go there with Steve. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to share that news with you guys though, because I totally spaced on it a couple weeks ago. So yes, that's not just this last week. That was a couple weeks ago, and it's very, very encouraging news. There was something else I wanted to tell you guys about. Oh, that's right. There was a article published by Jeffrey Augustine on Scientology Money Project, I think today, that sources are saying that Danny Masterson has been declared or has had a writ of expulsion written on him by the Church of Scientology. Now, that sources say, okay, we do not know that that is a fact. And he posted an article sort of pushing back on the various reasons we were forwarding and other people have been forwarding as to why it is we believe Masterson might not be declared. Now, I don't really care if he's declared one way or the other. But if he's not, my reasoning for that was that the Danny Masterson clan and the influence that goes on with that clan was such that the last thing they wanted was to have 9 more Leah Reminies, right? Or 5 or however many there are in the Remini, or not Remini, but in the Masterson family, that whole family, right? There's a lot of them, and all of them are Scientologists, and all of them are celebrities or influencers in some fashion. So it would make sense that if they, as a group, as a family, didn't want to disconnect from Danny Masterson because they truly believe in their heart of hearts that he's innocent, I could understand that. That was a scenario that made sense to me, but I don't know if that's the case or not, right? This has all been guesswork on everybody's part as to what the hell the Church of Scientology is doing with Masterson. Nobody knows, but hopefully we will eventually find out. And you can't really, I mean, this is going to be one of those things where we're going to have it. It's kind of like that old story about how the RPF was canceled. I first knew about that when I went to Australia, in 2014 or 15 or something, and visited my son. That's when I first heard about that. And I think I was the first to hear about it, and I started talking about it, but we didn't know. And it was absolutely true. The RPF was canceled. but we couldn't confirm that and believe it for years. It took us to get enough confirmation of what had happened. I think this this Masterson situation is unfortunately going to be somewhat similar, because until we either see a declare order or we have absolute verifiable evidence or testimony about this, how are we going to know? There are so many possibilities here. But at the same time, if these sources are speaking truth and Masterson has been declared, okay, that is an interesting game changer. And there are going to be consequences and ramifications of that. And I'll have to actually do more thinking than I've already done about it in order to kind of see all the possibilities. But it would be, it's going to be interesting no matter what. This is a David Bowie thing, right? I don't know what's coming next, but I promise you it won't be boring. Writ of expulsion is a Scientology term. Yes, you would be issued a writ of expulsion after you are declared a suppressive person. We don't really talk about writs of expulsion that much. Pretty much you get declared suppressive and it's understood that's what's happening. But technically they are two different steps. There is no such thing as getting declared and then not getting expelled unless you're in David Miscavige's inner circle. That's where people can get declared, but they don't get expelled. It becomes what's called a conditional declare. I've got this declare order written on you. It's signed and sealed and approved, but I'm not going to activate it. Right? That's Miscavige. That's what Miscavige does to control all those people up in the hole, or who were in the hole and who are now doing whatever the sequel or whatever they're doing now. Mitch Brisker says they're doing a lot of AV conversion and indexing and, kind of labor-intensive labor behind computer screens. So, who knows? Do they no longer issue non-interpolation orders preceding a declare? It's not always been standard practice to issue a non-interpolation order before a person is declared. A non-interpolation order is if a person's being noisy and they're not declared, but they're on the path to it, right? They're starting to get noisy. They're starting to be a bother. They're pissing off other people, or they're upsetting, or they're talking to other Scientologists and influencing them negatively against Scientology, right? That's what I mean by being interpolative. Then you get a non-interpolation order where, hey, one more report of anybody having a problem with you, and that's it, right? You're declared. And I've seen non-interpolation orders issued on people where they did get one more report and they weren't declared, right? Sometimes it's a bluff. Other times it's absolutely not. And, when it's a bluff, of course, they're relying on, the belief. But yeah, that's kind of how that works. Is sometimes you'll see that. But a person can move from zero to declare without having a non-interpolation order having to be issued on them. Yeah, right. It would be interesting if Masterson decided to write a memoir, but I doubt it would be very truthful right now. I mean, this is a guy who just got thrown in the slammer. He hasn't yet experienced anything close to the suffering that he's going to experience. And what can we say? He earned every minute of it, Yeah. So we'll see where things go with that. Yeah. Okay, guys. Wow. Oh, shit. It's 7:00. Okay, let's wrap up. Frosted these cards out a few times. Let's now actually read one to you. Well, all right. Not one I haven't read recently. Some of these are so familiar. Here we go. Okay, the Texas Sharpshooter. This is my logical fallacy card deck. And our fallacy of the week, the Texas Sharpshooter. That's the name of it. Here's the description. Cherry picking data clusters to suit an argument or finding a pattern to fit a presumption. The makers of Sugarette candy drinks point to research showing that of the 5 countries where Sugarette drinks sell the most units, 3 of them are in the top 10 healthiest countries on earth. Therefore, sugarette drinks are healthy. Yeah, not exactly. Also, this would also fit under correlation as not causation. But Texas sharpshooter more specifically. So there you go with that. Something for you to use in your life. And then let's talk about this weekend. I've got a podcast going up to tomorrow that is an interview that I think you guys are going to be pretty interested in. It's pretty long. And we also go not only through this individual's experience in a cult with no name, but then we get into quite a bit of interesting chatter and discussion about religion, belief, and the good and bad of that. And I think some of you might be a little surprised, or maybe not, at where we go with some of that. So that's what's happening this weekend. And then I will have a pre-recorded Q&A on Sunday. No plans on doing live. And then, of course, after Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical on Monday. Oh, always busy. Okay, guys. So on that happy note, anything else? No, I think we're covered. Great. All right. Thanks for coming around. Thanks for watching. I hope this was of interest. I hope it was interesting, informative, and educational as always. And see you guys later. Bye-bye.